What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the interweb? My name's CRUZANDO. Today, we're doing a video essay on the PlayStation 2, and we're talking about 4 different points: the launch, the games, the long life, and the legacy of the PlayStation 2. There will be some questions answered at the end of this video. For those of you that's wondering what's going to happen with the Jack content and stuff on the channel, so at the end of this video, or you can look at the timestamp right here, that's where you can find that. So without further ado, let's get into this circle jerk of the PlayStation 2 that I'm going to call a video essay. So the PlayStation 2 launched in the year 2000, a magical year where the dinosaurs were supposed to come back, the internet was supposed to take over, robots were supposed to kill you, and most importantly, Y2K was going to end the world. But alas, that did not happen. What ended up happening is PlayStation 2 took over, PlayStation 2 hurt your wallet, and the PlayStation 2 ended a lot of relationships. That's what actually happened, but it gave birth to beautiful childhoods. The launch of the PlayStation 2 was a mystical thing. Tell me your story for when you got your PlayStation 2 in the comments down below. I will tell you my story right now. I got my PlayStation 2 in the beautiful year of 2002. I got it at a yard sale. I was in kindergarten at the time. My mom went to a yard sale. She saw it. She told my grandpa. My grandpa went back and got the PlayStation 2. It came with Final Fantasy X. It came with Jack and Daxter. It came with a couple other games, and one of the games that it came with was a Linux disk to install Linux onto the PlayStation 2. I never knew how to do that at the time, but now I have installed Linux on the PlayStation 4, which you can see right there, and it's a beautiful thing. But that's not important, because this is about the launch of the PlayStation 2. What happened when it launched? Like, that was a huge, crazy thing. I mean, we had CNN went crazy with it. Everyone went crazy with it. I mean, it was insane. Literally every news outlet you could think of was picking up the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 fever was running rampant all over the wastelands. The PlayStation 2 was one of the biggest things to ever release. It was bigger than Jesus when it released. But PlayStation 2 was quite possibly, and quite literally, the GOAT. It was something that nobody expected to happen. When the PlayStation 2 launched, it even blew away Sony. Like, it launched and everyone's like, okay, it's gonna be good, but it's not gonna be something crazy big and memorable. But everyone was wrong. It was crazy huge. It was crazy memorable. This thing went on to be one of the greatest selling consoles, actually the #1 selling console of all time. And it blew everybody away. You know, I mean, the United States military, which is the strongest military in the world, all the militaries of the world combined could join forces to attack the United States, and they wouldn't even kill like 5% of our military before we totally wiped out their entire military. That's how strong our military is. They built so many war computers and so many war materials and war accessories out of PlayStation 2s. You know, it was literally insane the things they managed to do way back then with the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2, just like your smartphone does today, had more power than the ships that we sent to space in the 60s. It was such a huge, triumphant step for not only mankind, but for science and technology, and most importantly, for video games. So the launch of the PlayStation 2 was literally one of the biggest things that's ever happened for the world. I mean, this thing, it brought so much things to life that nobody expected to bring to life. I mean, it did not originally launch with online capabilities, but they managed to put online capabilities into it by the end of the life cycle, and it was literally just insane. But that brings us to the next part. Like, the launch would have meant nothing without the games. There were so many games that made big on that, like way back then. I mean, let's look at it this way. Let me show you the screen. As you can see there on the screen, that's Jack and Daxter. Jack and Daxter was literally one of the biggest games the PlayStation has ever had. Jack and Daxter is Sony's Mario. Jack and Daxter is Sony's biggest thing they've ever had. I mean, you could argue actually that's like Crash Bandicoot and Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper is bigger, but you really can't when you look at the legacy. The legacy of Jak and Daxter has been released so many times. It's been, one of the biggest games ever, and every time it gets released, it becomes one of the highest selling games. I mean, look at the PlayStation Store right now. It's in the top 5 most purchased PlayStation 4 games for the month of December already. It's insane, and the bundle's only been out for like 4 days at the time of the recording of this video. But Jak and Daxter wasn't the only games that helped push this. They had Final Fantasy X, which was the last great Final Fantasy. Every Final Fantasy since then has not lived up to what Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2 was. It was literally the last Final Fantasy to be, I don't know how to say it, but it was one of the last ones to properly do turn-based strategy game. It was one of the last ones to make an impact. And that doesn't even stop there. I mean, look at God of War. God of War was one of the biggest games of all time, and it still is. God of War 4 releases next month, or not next month, next year, and it's so crazy. Like, there's so much hype around this game. If you watched PSX last night, then you know that this game is going to be between 25 and 40 hours. Like, it's insane. It really is insane how so many of these games from PlayStation 2 lived on to today. And you know what can't say that? PlayStation 1. You know what else can't say that? The original Xbox. The only game from the original Xbox that was an exclusive that lives to this day is Halo. But if it wasn't for esports, Halo would be out in the wild, like forgotten about. But also, we do still have Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper was one of the biggest games of all time, but it doesn't have the same impact that all these other games have. The first big PlayStation game, in my opinion, was Max Payne or Tomb Raider. It was one of those two, and the reason is because those were the first PlayStation games to get movies. Successful movies. You could argue the Silent Hill movie was successful, but it wasn't a PlayStation exclusive thing. Although Max Payne still was not a PlayStation exclusive, it still held deep with PlayStation. So much when you look at it, that the games for it, it's just like, who would have thought that the PlayStation 2 would have that many great lineups? I mean, look at Shadow of the Colossus even. Shadow of the Colossus, it's now how many years? 12 years at this point? And it'll be 13 years when the game re-releases on PlayStation 4, fully remastered if I might add. And this game is still a huge success and has a huge cult following. I mean, the sequel to it, The Last Guardian, finally released last year, and it had poor reception compared to Shadow of the Colossus, and that's saying a lot because The Last Guardian had a hugely great reception compared to pretty much every other PlayStation 4 game released to this day. Now when you look at it, it's kind of like, how could they have pulled off so many good games? But the reason why is because of its life cycle, which leads us into the next point, the long life. This console, it had a lifespan of, what year is it, 2017? 17 years. There are still games being released for the PlayStation 2 to this day. There are still games being re-released. And, Limited Run Games, they're even talking about re-releasing more PlayStation 2 games onto the PlayStation 2 that was canceled or scrapped or never got published. So the life cycle of the PlayStation 2 at this point, it could go on and be a 20 plus year lifespan console. And that's insane. Because look at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Their life cycle is almost over and it's only been 4 years. Next year, it's rumored that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox whatever is going to be announced at E3, and then they're going to come in 2019. So they have really short lifespans. The PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 had short lifespans. The PlayStation 1 had a really short lifespan, and the PlayStation 2's lifespan has lasted longer than all the lifespans of every Sony console so far put together. It's like, how was this thing able to be so popular for so long? I can go to any game store right now and I can purchase PlayStation 2 games. And it's nothing, If you go on Amazon or if you go onto GameStop's website or Best Buy or anywhere really, you will find PlayStation 2 games are still some of the most expensive, most sought after games out there. Why was this thing able to get so popular so quickly? It really made, quite honestly, no sense. Like, I don't understand it even myself, and I've been with Sony since the 90s. It's crazy. But the long life of the PlayStation 2 was still not without issues. You know, originally Japan limited exports of the PlayStation 2. And it was just one of those things, it's like nobody could understand why they'd want to do that, but they limited exports of it. Even at that, it's not like it didn't have its issues, you know? Originally, Japan did not want to export so many consoles of it, but if Japan did not export it to the United States at the ramp they did, that console would have faded away and been nothing. You know, console gaming in the United States is huge. It's bigger here than it is anywhere else. I mean, PC gaming still has more users than PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch combined. But 86% of the PC market is in China. 86% of the active Steam users are in China. And that's not the case here. You know, that's leaves 16 or 14% people left for the rest of the world. 86% in China. China, of all places. And, you know, China is one of those places, like, you can't even walk outside your door without getting stabbed or ran over by a motorcycle or getting trampled by a cow or something. China is a crazy place, okay? But 86% of PC gamers, as far as Steam is concerned, comes from China. That, boom, blows my mind. But the large majority of console gamers are from the United States. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head because I haven't seen it for a while. I just know the Steam thing because I saw it this morning on Reddit. But I think the number for console for the US was between like 50 and 56%. It was somewhere between there. But that's like the large majority is from the US of A. So the PlayStation 2 being exported the way it did ramped up sales for the PlayStation 2. And not only that, but you had colorful PlayStation 2s that were available that you could get. It was one of those things that's like bam, 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 bam. Why would they not like want to do all of this, you know? Everything they did for the PlayStation 2 helped make it what it ended up being. And that is crazy, which leads us on to the next point and the final point, which is the legacy of the PlayStation 2. The legacy of the PlayStation 2 is one of those things that it's like, it will never not be remembered as something great. You know, if it wasn't for the PlayStation 2, the Xbox 360 would have never been successful. The PlayStation 3 would have never been successful. PlayStation 4 would have never been successful. Xbox One would have never been successful. And, you know, that would have just led to Sony and Microsoft losing to Nintendo, much like they are today. If Sony or Microsoft does not pull out another PlayStation 2 style console or PlayStation 2 quality games, they will not be able to last much longer in the console market because they're not able to produce quality content like Nintendo is still able to do. Even though the Wii U was not successful, the Wii U still had way better games than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One has had so far as exclusives go. You know, games that are cross, you know, obviously there's a lot, but that means nothing because, you know, it's exclusives that sell a console. It's hardware that sells a console, but that seems to not be the case anymore. And that never really was the case, you know? Out of the three consoles that was there, the PlayStation 2 was the weakest, the GameCube was the most powerful, and Xbox was number 2. PS2 the weakest, but it did the best. And that's repeating today with the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is the weakest, but it's doing the best. It's selling at a higher rate than PlayStation 4 has ever sold. And it's insane, you know? The holiday season hasn't even came. So I think what is happening now with, you know, the Nintendo Switch, if you look in the eShop, you see a lot of PlayStation 2 games that are being ported to the Nintendo Switch. At this point, there's like 15 or 16 major PlayStation 2 titles that you can only find on the Nintendo Switch. And there are games every day being announced for the Switch as exclusives that began on PlayStation 2. So the PlayStation 2 library is pretty much all Nintendo Switch right now. And it's really quite insane to think that that little console is going to take the torch from the PlayStation 4 and carry it on. And if you've seen the patent for the PlayStation for Switch, I don't know if it's actually going to be a thing or not, because this patent was from like a year ago, so it could be quite insane what could happen with that. But if it doesn't happen, then, you know, it's fine. So what are we going to lead that to at this point? Like, what is Sony going to do to recover? Personally, like, I've been thinking about this a lot. I really have. Sony needs to make not a PlayStation 5, but a PlayStation 2.0. They need to make a PlayStation that can play PlayStation 2 games. And they need to get back on board with all the games that made the PlayStation 2 great, if they ever want to expect to beat Nintendo again. Because the Switch has way too much momentum for Sony to ignore it, or for Sony to think that the Switch for a second will not beat them. Because by the end of this console generation, the Switch will slaughter PlayStation and Xbox. I can tell you that right now. You might not agree with it, but it's going to happen. For the legacy of the PlayStation 2, you know, not only does Sony need to remake the PlayStation 2 to be successful at this point, but the PlayStation 4 did take a lot from the PlayStation 2. You know, they took similar controllers. You know, that controller concept has been PlayStation's thing ever since the PlayStation 2. You could say PlayStation 1, but originally did not have analog sticks, so it really couldn't be considered the, you know, staple for back then. But now the PlayStation 4 controller is almost a staple for controllers. Like, there's so many controllers out there that look exactly like the PlayStation controller that was made famous by the PlayStation 2. Like, you may not agree with everything said in this video, but you cannot deny that the Switch is going to probably, more than likely, be the PlayStation 2 of this generation. You know, this is a video essay, so this is basically my opinions, which you can feel free to ignore, but some of these opinions are built off of facts. So some of this stuff we know for sure is going to happen. Some of it we don't know for sure is going to happen. Like, for example, the PlayStation 2.0. Like, you know, Nintendo's been pretty successful with their N64 or NES, SNES Classics. N64 Classic comes out next year. So if PlayStation was to release a PlayStation Classic and then a PlayStation 2 Classic, imagine how much, like, hotcakes that would sell. Like, imagine having a PlayStation 2 Classic and it have, like, Ratchet and Clank, all the Ratchet and Clank games, all the Sly Cooper, all the Jack, you know, all the Kais, Time Splitter, Siphon Filter, let's see, what else am I missing? Gun, Red Dead Revolver, Grand Theft Auto Vice City and San Andreas, and Grand Theft Auto 3, you know. The PlayStation 2.0, or PlayStation Classic, whatever you want to call it, could really be a huge hit for Sony if they were to ever revisit the PlayStation 2. So the PlayStation 2's legacy, in conclusion, is something that will never die, you know? It'll be the year 2200, and by then, something will obviously outsell the PlayStation 2 just because our population keeps growing, because humans keep breeding like rabbits. So in 100 years, you know, selling 150 million console units will be nothing. That'll be like selling 13 million units for the Wii U. You know, PlayStation 2 brought life back into gaming. You know, there was a slump that a lot of people hated, and gaming kind of died at that point. But then the PlayStation 2 came, and the PlayStation 2 reinvented esports, you know. I remember, like, 2004, it was the first big esports competition that I remember seeing on TV. It was, I think, they played Madden, and I think the prize pool was $1 million and a trip to the Super Bowl. That was huge, you know. That was on ESPN. That was MLG, you know. It was crazy. And then I remember seeing G4 a couple years before that, having Red versus Blue, which was basically esports, but without a title. They would get some of the best internet gamers around, which at the time, YouTube wasn't a thing, but there was other websites like Break.com and Video Motion, or Daily Motion, whatever it was called. And there was something else, I think it was like Epic something, I don't remember the full name of it, but they were posting videos on there, and then bada bing bada boom, it went viral. And thanks to the PlayStation 2, esports became a thing. And there's so many things today that we take for granted that the PlayStation 2 invented. You know, wireless controllers, that was something the PlayStation 2 had first. So, you know, it's quite insane. And controllers like this wouldn't be a thing. You know, the PlayStation 4 controller and the Xbox One controller are pretty much staples of what the PlayStation 2's legacy is. Not only did we get beautiful, beautiful controllers like this, but if I want to play this right there in the bed, I can, and no one's going to stop me. And that's something that the PlayStation 2 did first. The very first successful wireless controller came from the PlayStation 2. And here we have the beautiful PlayStation 4 controller. I'm gonna be honest, I still don't get the point of this. I still don't get the point of that. The little touchpad. But it's whatever, you know, it's okay, it'll be fine. But with that being said, again, this is just a video essay, so it's like my research and my thinking and my everything have concluded to this for me. So it's okay if you don't agree with it. Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. However, if you did not, feel free to let me know. And then maybe the next video essay you might enjoy a lot better. But as I said in the last video, this pretty much opens up a narrative. If you want to talk about anything else related to this video in the comments, let me know. And if you have your own opinions for the launch, the games, the long life, and the legacy that I did not mention, feel free to say that in the comments down below. And with that being said, you know, go to my Twitter, link in the description and top pinned comment. We will be voting on what the next video will be, video essay wise, so get prepared for that. It's going to be awesome. I really enjoy having you guys help dictate the channel of what's going to be made and what's not going to be made. There might be a video a week or 2 videos a week, but it's going to be higher quality, much better, much more fun videos than you've ever seen from CRUZANDO before. So I've been asked a few times recently, actually several few times, what's going to happen to the Jack content I usually do on the channel. Well, moving forward, since I am no longer going to be a daily upload channel, it's going to be like maybe a once or twice a week channel. I plan on keeping the Jack stuff to a minimum, but to a higher quality than before. Like, I want to take it so where instead of just being, you know, some type of BS video like, oh, look at this, the history of bear in practice, oh, look at this, the metalheads can do this, did you know this, did you know that, here, look at this little folklore thing, hey, look at me ranting that the Jack games are messed up, hey, look at my let's play that I'm gonna get like 200 views off of and then you're gonna never watch me again, because that happens to some YouTubers. Every time there's a new Jack re-released, they will jump on it, they will do good, they'll get like 200 subs in 2 weeks, and they'll get like thousands of views, and then they'll drop back down to 30 views and people forget about them. That's not going to be the fact with CRUZANDO. You know, video essays are a thing that aren't really done on YouTube yet. So this is kind of a new thing that I guess I could say I'm help pioneering, because these more long, focused, in-depth video essay type things, they're kind of very, very new to YouTube. So who knows what this is going to end up leading to going forward into the future. I hope it goes good, but I do have a few Jack videos planned that I do want to do. Like, I do want to go through Jack 1, 2, 3 and fully dissect them. Those videos will probably be like an hour, 2 hours long if we're going to be completely honest. And I do want to go through and dissect like a bunch of random stuff for the Jack games, but stuff that actually matters, that hasn't been said before, stuff that can be added. You know, there's a lot I want to do with it. If I was able to like find dev versions of Jack, I would love to make one of these video essays about that. And I could honestly make a video essay about the beta, but I would have to work with some of the beta researchers like Lumineer Light and Dagger 844, whatever his name was. And it would be pretty cool to do like one big collab. It would be pretty cool to do, but as of right now, I don't know if I'm gonna have the time for that, because, you know, right now it's holiday time. January rolls around. We have a theatrical production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof that I'm gonna have to be doing, and then we're gonna have like 5,000 other things going on. So this video style with one a week, one big good video a week, it's gonna work out better for me in the long run, if that makes sense, because now that I'm getting older, until the summer comes back, you know, I'm going to be really busy. So with that being said, I hope that answers your questions on what's going to happen with Jack content moving forward. If you have any more questions, feel free to answer them or ask them in the comments, and I'll reply as soon as I can. So with that being said, once again, my name is CRUZANDO, try not to die, and I will see you in the next video.